welcome to a very special edition of Ready, Set, Scale, the visual podcast. I'm Shannon Tomlinson, Senior Director of Marketing at ScanSource, and I am so excited to host this special edition. Today we have Andy Leong, Senior Director, Product Marketing at Extreme. And we are going to dive into the ultra sleek, ultra exciting world of SD-WAN, what it does, why you want it in your portfolio, and why IT departments need it. So without further ado, Andy, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Shannon. Great to see you again, and thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure to be in front of ScanSource's customers.
Thank you. We are excited to talk about this today. So first, let's start with the basics. Let's just kind of define and explain SD-WAN a little bit.
Yeah, level setting is always good. So SD-WAN refers to software-defined wide area networks. And the way to think about it is we've gone from an environment of routers at the branches, at the edges of your customers' networks. They've been using things like Cisco ISRs, things like AdTrend routers. The fact of the matter is they've been out there in service for a good 10 plus years. They are not optimized for all the applications that your customers' users are using today. So SD-WAN was born out of let's optimize existing routing infrastructure for a more modernized way to design the edge network to connect better to these applications. And I'm actually getting ahead of myself here, Shannon, but in a nutshell, that's what it is we're talking about here today.
Okay. Well, I think that kind of defines it. So let's jump in. Tell us what you're bringing to the table with Extreme today.
Sure. So many, if not all of your customers are going through unprecedented change, whether it's digital transformation, it's migrating to the cloud, it's modernizing applications, wrestling with the pandemic and the aftermath of that. So it's introducing a lot of change into the organization. Above and beyond that, you have users who are looking for a better end-to-end user experience of all these applications they use on a day-to-day basis. What happens is if the user experience is inferior or something breaks, guess who gets the call? The IT teams of your customers. So you want to try to avoid that situation if at all possible. The network is becoming more complex. New technologies are added. More management systems are necessary. And what that introduces is a lack of visibility for your customers' IT teams. At the end of the day, it's all about reducing, mitigating risk, cost, and complexity. So that's what your IT and operations teams of your customers are wrestling with today. What SD-WAN, software-defined wide area networks, introduces is now an ability to optimize the application experience, and we'll get into some of those details. It offers them the ability to leverage cloud technology to drive better scale, better efficiency, and ultimately connect better to software as a service applications or other applications that may reside in public cloud. Not coincidentally, this aligns to Extreme's vision for all of your customers, which is what we call the infinite enterprise. And quite simply, to think about what that means is there are a couple attributes or end states of that. One is infinite distribution. And so if you think about the way users work today, post-pandemic, Shannon, you're likely working out of your home office. I'm working in my home office. Maybe periodically we go back to a branch office where we congregate with management, other coworkers, partners, but the workplace has changed. Connectivity, distribution of users is becoming more spread out. Okay, just got a blip there. The network is actually required then to scale accordingly and efficiently. And that's where cloud comes into play. And lastly, as we spoke about, the user experience demanded by the end users of your customers has to be always on and of high quality. So that's what we refer to as the infinite enterprise vision, and that aligns very closely to what SD-WAN enables.
So really, we're talking about multiple things, but it's about speed, resiliency, and a centralized management, kind of that control and visibility, right?
Absolutely. And if you consider for a moment here, Shannon, what the legacy networks look like, and I mentioned some of the vendor solutions that may be deployed in the field today, what they use, and I'm going to try to avoid acronym soup here, but this one is important for SD-WAN, and it's called MPLS. This is multi-protocol label switching. The way these networks are designed is everything funnels back to a centralized data center. The data center is sort of the end all be all for access to the internet, access to applications and data. What has changed? Well, with SaaS, software as a service, and IaaS, infrastructure as a service, platforms, many of the applications that we all use on a day-to-day basis have moved to these environments. So let me ask you, Shannon, what do you use most commonly every day?
Uh, Gosh, just about everything you have listed, it feels like probably more than one running at the same time.
Right. And I think, most of your customers will find the same thing to be true. You have real-time applications for voice and video, whether it's Zoom, it's Teams, it's WebEx. You have applications like point of sale in retail. In healthcare, they use electronic health records. So there are applications specific to those environments. You also have, let's say, in manufacturing, the need to use CAD/CAM, so computer-aided design, computer-aided manufacturing. The fact of the matter is many of these applications have already moved out of data centers into the cloud. If not, they will be doing so very shortly. So the point here is yesterday's network is not optimized for a good experience to all these applications that have moved to the cloud.
I'm following you. I really am. I think this is designing it so that we all understand how this works. And again, going back to the point of why it's important.
Yeah, so on one hand, Shannon, it's about the end user experience above
Right.
all, right? You've got all these applications that have shifted to the cloud. You need a different architecture. I spoke about MPLS. The reason why that is not optimal is it is very inflexible. It's difficult to provision. It's very expensive. Why wouldn't ScanSource's customers want to use public internet, albeit business grade internet, to more cost effectively attach their sites to one another using modernized infrastructure, but at the same time connect better and more efficiently to all of these commonly used applications that now reside in the cloud.
Correct. Nope. Makes perfect sense to me.
So then let's take a closer look at software-defined wide area networks. What it does by definition is it takes out the management from each of these routers individually and centralizes that management in the cloud. So that's what we mean by software-defined. So you can see here what these individual locations do, whether you have a campus, you have a branch, is they're not necessarily connecting back to this data center. They now have connections directly into the cloud here. And so they have more effective access, direct access to all of these cloud applications. What SD-WAN also leverages, and this is a key point, is the public internet. So some of your customers may be concerned about, well, the internet isn't always reliable. It's beyond a service provider's control. Bottom line is there's something called business grade internet. So it's far more reliable than consumer grade internet, and it comes at a fraction of the cost as MPLS or multi-protocol label switching connections. And so the network can be engineered with resilience, so customers can use multiple connections. So if one goes down, the other one picks up, so nothing gets dropped as far as traffic, video, voice. At the same time, part of SD-WAN is it introduces security into these connections between sites and between the sites to the cloud. So at a high level, that's what SD-WAN introduces. Better experience for applications, better resilience, better security, lower cost connectivity.
I'm glad you mentioned security because that's always top of mind, especially now around anything internet focused. Security is always a big question and a concern that we want to make sure we cover as well. And when I look at
Absolutely.
what you're showing here, it reminds me of string art. It's like you put a pin in something, and then to the next thing there's a string, and the next pin. But with what I'm kind of visualizing myself is if one of those strings were to break, if you're connected to SD-WAN, you're still good. You didn't
That is
lose
a
anything.
That's a fantastic analogy, Shannon. You know, it's interesting because from a technical perspective, we refer to this term called hairpinning. And I don't want to expose the audience to all that ugliness and all that, geek speak. But the bottom line is, if we reflect back on the before, there was this notion of hairpinning. Everything goes through the data center to the internet and comes back, right? So you have a series of strings. The strings are not designed for resilience. So in other words, you may have a single string between different sites. If one of them goes down, well, guess what? Your entire network and all of the
Right.
application experience just falls to the floor and people can't connect. They can't communicate like we're doing now. With SD-WAN, it offers, again, that cost effectiveness of the connectivity. It gives you the ability to create multiple strings between different locations and back to the cloud so that if any one of them ever got disconnected, you'd have another one fully functional. Nothing gets disrupted in terms of user experience.
So again, a second layer of security, making sure that you stay connected.
Indeed, indeed.
I'm trekking right along.
Great. So I know oftentimes customers ask, okay, I want to sweat my assets. I want to leave my existing routers in place as long as possible. So you may have customers who are asking, what's the right time to adopt SD-WAN? According to industry analyst Gartner, they have this thing called a hype cycle for enterprise networking. And this effectively tracks, every viable technology pretty much from inception through maturity. Where a customer wants a technology to be is as far to the right as possible, because what that means is it's gone through the muster drills in terms of deployment. Customers have already kicked the tires on it, deployed it, and actually the solutions have been refined over time. Look at where SD-WAN is. It is basically on this right side of the curve headed towards market maturity. So the bottom line is the technology is proven, it's mature. A lot of your peers have actually already adopted this technology. What Gartner predicts is we're going to see widespread market adoption in the next 1 to 2 years. All a long way of saying the time is now to look at SD-WAN. To further quantify it, they also, as well as industry analyst IDC, they predict that the market for all product and services for SD-WAN related security is anywhere between $6.1 and $7.2 billion over the next couple years. So this is definitely a high growth area, and rightly so. if you reflect back on what we just discussed, Shannon, the applications migrating to the cloud, the existing architectures being long in the tooth, time is right for SD-WAN. The final point here is that for customers who are wrestling with increasing CapEx budgets. So in other words, your CRO, your COO, CEO is actually saying, we need to confine our capital expenditures. SD-WAN offered by the right vendor as the right solution can be purchased as a subscription. So it's definitely CapEx friendly and can be consumed as a OpEx-based model.
Good to know, because I'm sure that those dollars play heavy when it comes to making any kind of change. And our partners are the same way. They want to make sure they understand what that looks like and how they can optimize what they have and how that works.
Absolutely. So now that we've looked at what is SD-WAN, why SD-WAN, the timing, I know some of our audiences may be scratching their heads saying, okay, so what's different about the Extreme solution? First and foremost, this has been in production for about a year now. This has been generally available since the early part of last year, but that was not our first foray into SD-WAN. What Extreme Networks did was we acquired a company called Ipanema. And before there was SD-WAN, this company was known for building application performance. They were focused on optimizing the WAN, traffic, connectivity. So what we did was we incorporated that technology into our ExtremeCloud to give customers unified management of not just SD-WAN, but also the wired switches and the wireless access points that many of your customers may have already purchased from Extreme. So that's what we refer to as basically one cloud managing one network. We're very unique in that sense. There's only a handful of vendors who can actually lay claim to the unified management. When we look at application performance, there are even fewer vendors who offer solid and exceptional application performance for those same things we looked at, the Zoom, the Teams, Office 365. In our latest release, and this just became publicly available about a month ago, is we introduced a completely new streamlined user experience, user interface. And what does that mean? For your customers, it just makes setting up and managing an SD-WAN system that much easier. In addition to that, we introduce what we call maintenance-free on-ramps to Amazon Web Services and Microsoft Azure, so that as your customers connect their SD-WANs to the public cloud, we just make it a lot easier for them to set up those connections and actually monitor what's happening over those connections. Lastly, we introduce a new appliance for customer locations, so it scales up to 10 gigabits per second. We weren't done at that. So we wanted to introduce capabilities that were completely unique to Extreme. And so we introduced Fabric to the Edge, network fabric working in conjunction with SD-WAN. Proud to say we're the only vendor in the market that offers this capability. Let me talk about what exactly that means. But before I do that, any questions on this, Shannon?
No, this all sounds it sounds great. I'm following you, but yeah, I want to understand this fabric.
Fantastic. So network fabric is not a new concept to the market. This is something that Extreme for close to 10 years now has been a pioneer on. And if you consider some of your customers today, they've already purchased Extreme switching. Fabric is a capability that comes with those switches. And if you consider a typical enterprise environment, you've got a campus here. That is the heart of everything. You've got a data center. How do they connect? Well, They may be using switching from Extreme in both locations, and they're connected via this network fabric. What the fabric does is it offers more streamlined management, visibility of the network as a whole, and offers an additive layer of security so that for the most part, any device or part of the network connected to the fabric is completely unbreachable. And we've proven this in hackathons, in bake-offs. We have currently over 5,000 network fabrics deployed using Extreme technology, and that is industry leading. However, if you look at the way customers connect these locations, they're using metro fiber or potentially MPLS. And we all have heard about what is not so great about multi-protocol label switching. It's expensive, it's inflexible, difficult to provision. Now, let's look at all of the branches at the edge of the network. How do they connect back to the campus and to the data center? They're using MPLS. Not the best thing possible. They may also be connected via the internet. However, in the absence of SD-WAN, they're using VPN. Shannon, when was the last time you used a VPN?
Hasn't been that long ago.
Did it work flawlessly?
I can't say that it was flawless.
Okay, enough said. And I think that's probably consistent with most users and IT teams' experience with VPN. It's not entirely reliable, and it becomes frustrating, not just for the user to utilize, but also for IT teams to manage and troubleshoot. And so that's where, with our fabric to the edge capabilities with SD-WAN, and again, this is what we announced to the markets right in February of this year, we're now allowing customers to extend an existing Extreme fabric environment all the way to those branches. So what it's now doing is allowing customers to operate the network as one, completely end-to-end, data center, campus to branch, all brought together, unified, if you will, by a single fabric. And the most beautiful part to this is it eliminates the need for your customers to use VPN technology or MPLS, which again is expensive, inflexible, to connect back to the campus and data center. They can then utilize lower cost internet connectivity, as we spoke about earlier. They can use dual links for resiliency. They get fabric associated, they get security associated with SD-WAN, and also an added layer of security associated with fabric. And so what we're basically doing is giving our customers who have deployed an Extreme network based on switching, based on fabric, the ability to bring in SD-WAN and leverage all the benefits of SD-WAN in conjunction with that network.
So you've created a bigger blanket from your fabric.
Indeed, indeed. And it's much easier for the IT team to know what to do with that blanket and to be able to, benefit from that blanket and to provide a better experience for their users.
Right, right. Again, going back to why the IT department wants this. Absolutely.
Indeed.
I'm kind of liking this fabric, going back to, we're going to make this sleek and exciting. So, we're building a whole wardrobe here with all of this fabric, and we're connecting it all together so everybody's covered.
Yeah, it's a great way to look at it. I mean, we're really excited about SD-WAN. We believe our customers, the market is. However, we've found a very unique use case or application with Fabric. And so this will be really appealing to an existing Extreme customer But likewise, for a net new customer, and I know, a lot of you are considering the Extreme solution, maybe you're going with a competitor solution today. This is a complete soup to nuts solution. So for the campus, the data center, even for the branch, switching, fabric, as well as SD-WAN, it truly does make life easier for the IT team.
Well, I mean, that again, that's what it's all about: staying connected, making data available, speed, resiliency, centralized management, keeping that control. I mean, that's really what it's all about. It makes life easier across the board.
Definitely. So to wrap things up here, we spoke about the attributes of our SD-WAN, and these are things that make our solution different. It comes down to unified management for switching, for Wi-Fi, for SD-WAN, together, single pane of glass. We offer exceptional application performance, the ability to detect and optimize business and mission critical applications. We offer a simplified, intuitive IT experience when it comes to setting up and managing the solution. But again, most exciting, most important, and valuable to all of you and your IT teams is the whole fabric to the edge capability with SD-WAN. And again, Extreme is the only vendor in the market today who offers this.
Well, thank you, Andy. I think that was a great wrap up. Appreciate that. There's a
Great,
couple of
thanks.
things that I know you mentioned that I know from our audience specifically, when we do Ready Set Scale, we are vertically focused on a lot of these. I feel like you mentioned a couple of things, but from a vertical market, where does this fit?
So what are the top markets for ScanSource?
Retail, healthcare, um, education,
Right. So
manufacturing.
that is perfect. And I think I spoke about at least three of those verticals, Shannon, but let me just kind of go back to that. So for retail, the most commonly used and mission critical application is point of sale. So they need to be able to collect credit card payments, authenticate somebody's debit card, for instance, or else the heart of their business is handicap. So that's the application in retail. When you look at education, they use e-learning. They use some of the same tools that we use from a public sector perspective, right? Office 365, Teams, or Zoom. You look at healthcare, they use EHR, they use Epic and Cerner for electronic health records. For manufacturing, they use SolidWorks for CAD/CAM, or they may use Autodesk, right? So these are the same applications that SD-WAN was designed to actually detect and optimize. And these are things that our system, our SD-WAN, was purpose built to really provide an exceptional user experience for. And when you combine that with fabric and the simplicity of bringing together the entire network, utilizing low-cost internet connectivity, it's a situation of 1 + 1 = way more than 3.
Oh, beautiful. That was beautiful. I just wanted to make sure. I knew I heard you hit those a couple of times, but I just wanted to make sure for our audience when we talk about this isn't just a one and done. This covers so many things and is so important. Again, to your point, Andy, getting back to that total user experience. I know for our partners, their goal is to make that end customer happy. That end customer and that user experience is so important.
Right.
And part of that is staying connected and making sure that that whole experience from beginning to end is smooth and seamless. So with SD-WAN and Extreme, I think we could make that happen.
Absolutely.
All right, Andy, I appreciate you so much. This was great information. I hope for our partners out there today, I hope that you found some information that was valuable and useful that you're going to go back and implement. Please know that you can reach out to us at ScanSource at any time. We are here to help you. We have dedicated teams ready for you to help you with SD-WAN and any questions that you have around Extreme. We are always here to help you get set and get ready to scale your business for success. So until next time, think ScanSource for all your technology needs.